Welcome back to Global War 1939. We just completed the rest of round one, so we went through all the different nations and completed all their turns after our German playthrough for this game. So we're not going to talk a lot in about the Germans as we did an hour and a half on the last video. Essentially, they took over all the nations or all the territories that we need them to take on the first round. Basically, from this point onward, we're just going to gear up for the invasion into Russia. Now, normally, the UK on the last games, the last four, anyways, the Germans never attacked the fleet in Sea Zone 23, allowing the British and Free French, whatever they did get, to allow them to attack the German fleet up there with their Air Force assisting. They weren't able to do that because they didn't have a fleet. This was all that was surviving, and this was one destroyer, a battleship, and a French destroyer. We just swapped them out for the British sculpts. But French battleship, French destroyer, and one British destroyer. So they certainly didn't have enough firepower to take on this. Now, the German battleship does have 1 point of damage, so it does need to get back to a port to repair that. So for the Japanese, they implemented their first strike attack. They've been doing the last couple of games, attacking FEC right away. They only took out two territories from FEC, Hong Kong and this territory here, along with the Dutch Borneo. This is a pretty standard move. These territories are undefended, so they're just walk-ons. So they're very easy to pick up, and it is an extra $5. They did take out the French territory that decided to align themselves with the Allies. And of course, they didn't need to take out the French territory that joined the Axis. They did go ahead and activate Siam, so that's now in full control of the Japanese. And we only attacked one territory, part of China. For the most, outside of that, they just added more infantry and frontline troops onto the mainland Asia, almost emptying out their home islands. And then they just repositioned their fleet to help assist in those landings, in those ground combats, utilizing bombardments. Two destroyers bombarded in Hong Kong, the battleships into that Chinese territory, and the two destroyers bombarding into the French Indonesia. The Japanese losses weren't all that big. They lost two SNLF infantry, so they got away pretty lucky there. For their purchases, they did go ahead and get these two complexes, and they just bought themselves a few more infantry. Now, in my mind, when I look at the state of the map on the Japanese Empire at the start of the game, all their industries on their home island, right? So now you don't have to make this purchase. You can invest in more Navy, more land-based units. That's fine. Then the problem is all your industry is on your home island. You start with 6 transports. So if you do this and keep that there, then your transports are essentially stuck in Sea Zone 124. So you'll have to buy more transports. So it's cheaper to buy 2 complexes, place them in mainland China, and then you can produce right away on the mainland and get your forces onto the front line even faster. Because essentially what you're doing, if you produce here and transfer over, you're a turn behind. You'll always be a turn behind to get your units over. You won't have the transports to take over these islands, so you have to invest that money in the transports anyways. So it's in my opinion, this is a must purchase. Building up your industry, get units, take out China, Communist China, and then put a stifle on FEC. So that's exactly what they did. Just those complexes. For now, from this point onward, they'll invest, especially turn 2 and 3. They'll invest heavily into their army. They don't really need to invest much money into their air force, not yet, anyways. They do start with sizable air power. So infantry, artillery, mechanized units to get across all these territories as quickly as possible and eliminate your enemies. And then after turn 3, once we transition turn 4 and 5, then that's when they'll start investing into their navy, because by then America is usually in the war, and if you're going to go after America, you need a sizable navy. So certainly bigger than what the Japanese start with. All right, so for the Russians, they didn't really do a lot. They took out Western Poland, the Baltic states. In this rule set, you want to do that because you get a $5 bonus plus the money for the territories. So it is $8. And the Russians rolled really well. They rolled 11 and a 12. So they're almost up there. Right now they're at 23. So essentially they're halfway to joining the war just on the die rolls. So there is a potential Russia could be declaring war by turn 3. We'll see. So outside of that, then their purchase, they bought 5 infantry. They only started with $15. Not a lot. You can really do with that. Drop the 5 infantry. They did produce them up in these 2 complexes, and they're prepping up to wage war into Finland. And they want to do that. It stifles the German economy slightly, not a lot. Essentially, there would be removing an infantry and $3 worth from the Germans, and it does eliminate a northern pinch from the inevitable war that will be happening pretty shortly here. So essentially, they're limiting the Germans from attacking from down here, saving a northern assault. I know it didn't really work out for that the last game, but that is their go-to plan. Try to limit the Germans from attacking in this region. So instead of having the Russians to spread out their defense force, they can have it in one area, have a bigger stack for the Germans to have to deal with. So we'll see if that plan works out. FEC China. FEC really didn't do a lot. Not really. Re-maneuvered. They didn't attack anywhere outside of Iraq. They took their transport 1, 2, 3. They can move 3 because of the sea base. And they decided to attack Iraq. Normally, they'll always come up and activate Iran. It does give the British $3 more. It is connected to a national objective if you also hold Iraq. Now, in the last couple of games, they've always waited for Iraq to be activated by Italy and then attacked, or they wait for turn 7, then activate it that way. But that's essentially 5 turns without a bonus that you're not getting. So why throw away $25? Attack it now. Take out southern or activate southern Iran this turn. Next turn, activate these 2 territories. Boom, you got your bonus starting in turn 2 as opposed to waiting till turn 7. But because by attacking here, they left out Syria to stay under German control. That's fine. That's not. I highly suspect this will fall to the British very shortly. But it doesn't really feel like, to me, this is a pretty decent move. It doesn't really feel in the spirit of the British Empire, as they're not really the aggressor. They're the country that's bringing peace to the world, not really trying to conquer other territories. But the case could be made. The Iraqi government at the time was siding with their enemy, so get rid of a potential future enemy now as opposed to waiting. That was their thought process. But in game wise, they want that bonus, more money that you can have for yourself, take it away from your enemy. The more units you get on the map, the much better situated you'll be. For Africa, they went ahead and purchased their own complex. So we're going to start putting units in here right away. Now, the fleet that starts in the Mediterranean, Sea Zone 47. The last couple games, they've always come up, activated Greece, but they brought up this fleet to protect the transports. Because the British transports are linked into a national objective, not just United Kingdom. Canada will get a bonus. South Africa, Australia, FEC, they all get bonuses. But this time, the problem with here is that the Italians always come in with their fleet, their air force, wipe it out, and typically the Italians will only lose like a sub and a cruiser or a destroyer. It's not worth losing an aircraft carrier, a battleship, a destroyer, a cruiser, sub. It's not worth taking out 2 subs from the Italians. So this time they decided to link up with the Indian fleet. So they're both right here now. So of course they'll join together. The British did purchase another destroyer here and a destroyer here. So they'll all link up together, and either one sail around Africa, avoiding the Mediterranean, avoiding the Italians, and then trying to go after the German fleet, or certainly secure the Atlantic so the British and the Americans can start landing transports to make landings into mainland Europe, or they'll take this and go and try to make a run into the Mediterranean, taking on or trying to take out the Italian fleet before making its way to the Atlantic. Of course, if they go after the Italian fleet, their own fleet will be severely diminished, which is fine. The British have a much easier time rebuilding a fleet from scratch than the Italians. Essentially, the Italians pretty much maintain the fleet that they start with. They might add a destroyer or cruiser here and there, but for the most part, their starting fleet is what they got to work with. They just don't really have the income. The income they do have, yes, is pretty decent for a major minor nation. They start with 26, but that can quickly fall pretty slowly, or you can raise it well above over 40. But once they start getting into a land combat with the British in Africa, most of their money typically goes there, because the British are definitely dropping 3 units a turn. That means the Italians need to do the exact same thing. And then the South Africans just moved up some more infantry. They're going to activate this territory next. They already did activate this. The 2 destroyers that start here and the small fleet that starts here kind of join together, and they'll meet up with the French Anglo fleet and try to hold off the British while they wait for reinforcements. Canada, they didn't build a transport because there were subs here, big German fleet. Building a transport would probably be a waste of money, so they dropped a destroyer. The British also dropped a destroyer, so they'll link up with this battleship as well. The Americans, all they purchased over here was artillery, because in the Pacific, they went ahead and constructed another aircraft carrier. They really want to. Early in the game, the Americans can't really contend with the Japanese fleet. They just have to try to keep pace as best they can. The Japanese start with 2 carriers, 2 carriers, 2 battleships. So the British or the Americans wanted to keep pace with that as much as they can, especially early in the game. The Americans rolled extremely badly. They only rolled a 7. So their income is not... Right now, out of all the income out of all the countries, the Americans are the poorest, outside of Communist China, of course. But that will quickly, once they start rolling that dice every couple turns, their income will certainly shoot up. Actually, no, I just lied. I forgot to factor in the income for FEC and France. So let's go ahead and give the Americans another $30. So the Americans are actually at 37. I just lied to you. Because the once France gets attacked, I believe I'll have to double check. I believe it's $5. Could be 10. I'll double check it. Once the FEC gets attacked by the Japanese or Australia, the Americans get a $25 jump. I'll double check the France one. I believe it's 5. Could be 10. All right. So, and then for the Italians, they did take out the Greek fleet. The British just sent up their lone transport and just hoped for the Greeks to defend it. The Greeks had a destroyer and a coastal battleship that quickly got destroyed. And the Italians dropped off infantry in these Greek islands. So they were under Italian control. Greece proper is still under British, but that will quickly follow, I would suspect. As for Marseille, this did align with the Allies. So the Italians came in with a couple of infantry, utilizing their transport, drop off a couple more, using most of their air force. But the French that stayed there rolled pretty decent compared to the rest of their country and took out 3 Italian units. So they barely hung on, but they did capture it. So the Germans don't have to worry about the last French holdout. They can continue on with their 3-term plan to invade the Soviet Union, as if that was already rolled. Only difference between this game and or the previous games is that the income will go to Italy as opposed to Germany. But it is a $3 swing. It is a big deal. So we'll see how all this plays out. So this game here, the Japanese kept the same strategy from the previous games. The Germans did as well. The Italians kind of reacted to the outcome of this game compared to the previous. So the strategy stayed the same, but changed slightly. The British strategy, I'm trying out a new one. So far, everything's going well. It's just that the British were hoping to keep that fleet in Sea Zone 23. So that kind of changes things in the Atlantic for the British point of view slightly. Not really. But we'll see how all this plays out. Their biggest change from their ordinary playbook has definitely been Iraq. So we'll see if that pays off. The Australians, same strategy. They went ahead and activated New Guinea. So they're trying to hold off or prevent the Japanese from taking these islands. The Japanese usually have all these islands by turn 3. So if they can slow them down, I don't think the Australians can prevent the Japanese from taking these islands. If Japan really wants them, they're just going to take them. But it's their job to slow them down. So if they can prevent them from gaining the income from these islands from the bonus, a turn or 2, a distraction, so they're not building up for the Americans, keep their fleet out of position, then they'll do their job. So we'll see how all this plays out. China, they just fortified. They didn't really attack anywhere. They took out one empty Chinese or Japanese territory. So they'll sacrifice that one infantry just to distract the Japanese. They certainly know they're not going to hold it. Communist China did the same thing. They moved up into a vacant territory. So the Chinese just got a wall of infantry, and they're going to hope to slow down the Japanese. And we'll see how all this goes. The Americans didn't give the Chinese a tank. Heavily debating on purchasing a tank for them on the first round. But the Americans really wanted that aircraft carrier. All right. Well, thank you for watching, and you have yourself a great day.